Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the U.S. Liberty, staring at the massive shape floating in the darkness of space. The ship before them was unlike anything he had ever seen. It was huge, easily 10 times the size of his own vessel, and covered in strange metal that seemed to drink in the light from distant stars. "How long has it been out here?" Jake asked his science officer, Dr. Lisa Carter. She was bent over her instruments, running scan after scan on the mysterious ship. "The radiation patterns suggest it's been drifting for at least 50,000 years," Lisa said, her voice filled with wonder. "Maybe longer. Jake, this thing is ancient." Chief Engineer Rick Adams shook his head as he looked at his readings. "Captain, I'm not picking up any power signatures. Whatever this ship is, it's been dead for a very long time." Jake walked closer to the main screen, studying the alien vessel. Its hull was dark and pitted from countless years in space. Strange symbols were carved into its surface, but they were too far away to read clearly. The ship's design was elegant, yet powerful, with smooth curves that somehow suggested both beauty and danger. "Any idea what species built it?" Jake asked. Lisa frowned at her scanner. "That's the strange part. The metal composition doesn't match any known alien technology. It's not Vorthan, not Selenoid, not any of the council races we've encountered." "Communications." Officer Amy Walsh looked up from her station. "Captain, I'm not detecting any distress signals or automated messages. If there's anyone alive over there, they're not talking." Jake made his decision. "Rick, can you get us close enough to dock?" "I can try, but I can't promise that ship won't fall apart when we touch it. It's old, Captain. Really old. Do it carefully. Lisa, I want you to put together a boarding team. We're going to take a look inside." 2 hours later, Jake found himself floating through the airlock of the ancient ship. The artificial gravity was dead, so his team had to use their magnetic boots to walk on the metal floors. Emergency lights from their suits cut through the darkness, revealing corridors that stretched far into the ship's depths. "The air is breathable," Lisa reported, checking her instruments. "Old, but not toxic. Whatever happened here, it wasn't a hull breach." Rick was already examining the walls with his engineering tools. "Captain, look at this. These aren't just decorative panels. There's technology embedded in every surface. I've never seen anything like it." The corridors were wide enough for 10 people to walk side by side. The walls were covered in the same strange symbols they had seen on the hull, but up close, Jake could see they weren't just carved decorations. They seemed to pulse with a faint inner light, as if they were trying to activate, but couldn't quite manage it. "Amy, are you picking up anything from these symbols?" Jake asked. Amy ran her translation. "Equipment over the nearest wall. It's not in any galactic database, Captain. These symbols are completely unknown." They made their way deeper into the ship, their footsteps echoing in the empty corridors. The vessel seemed to go on forever, with level after level of rooms and passages. Most of the rooms were empty, but some contained equipment that defied explanation. Strange consoles with no visible controls, chambers filled with crystalline structures, and walls covered in what looked like star charts. "Captain," Lisa called from ahead, "you need to see this." Jake hurried to catch up and found himself in a vast chamber at the heart of the ship. The room was circular, with a raised platform in the center. Above the platform, a massive sphere of dark metal hung suspended in the air, covered in thousands of the glowing symbols. "What is it?" Jake asked. "I think it's the ship's computer core," Rick said, "but it's unlike anything I've ever seen. The technology is so advanced, I can't even begin to understand how it works." Amy was already setting up her equipment near the sphere. "Captain, I'm detecting faint energy readings. This thing isn't completely dead. There's something still active inside." Jake approached the sphere cautiously. As he got closer, some of the symbols began to glow brighter. "Is it responding to us?" "I think so," Amy said. "It's like it's trying to wake up." Lisa was running her hands over a section of the platform. "These symbols here, they're different from the others. They almost look like they could be a language we might recognize." Jake knelt beside her to get a better look. The symbols were indeed different, more angular and geometric than the flowing scripts on the walls. As he stared at them, something clicked in his mind. The patterns reminded him of something he had seen before, something from Earth's ancient history. "Amy, run these through the historical database," Jake said. "Check them against pre-space human languages." Amy's equipment hummed for several minutes before she looked up in shock. "Captain, you're not going to believe this. The computer says these symbols are a match for ancient human writing. But that's impossible. Humans only went to space 300 years ago." Rick was staring at his scanner in disbelief. "Captain, I'm reading massive power conduits throughout this ship. If this thing could be fully powered, it would make our best battleships look like toys." Jake stood up slowly, his mind racing. "Are you telling me this ship might be human?" "The evidence suggests it," Lisa said carefully. "But that would mean humans had advanced space technology 50,000 years ago. That's impossible according to everything we know about human history." Suddenly, the sphere above them pulsed with bright light. The symbols on its surface began to move, swirling in patterns that hurt to look at directly. A low humming sound filled the chamber, growing stronger by the second. "It's powering up," Rick shouted over the noise. "Captain, we should get out of here." But Jake stood his ground, staring up at the awakening machine. "No, we came here to discover the truth. Let's see what this ship has to tell us." The humming reached a peak, then suddenly stopped. The sphere continued to glow, but now the light was steady and warm. Slowly, words began to appear in the air above the platform. They were in English, clear and easy to read. "Greetings, children of Earth. I am Phoenix, guardian of the Sovereign. I have been waiting for your return for 50,000 years." Jake felt his knees go weak. The ancient ship was human, but that meant everything they knew about their own history was wrong. "Phoenix," Jake said, his voice barely above a whisper. "What happened to the humans who built this ship?" The floating words changed. "That is a long story, Captain Morrison. But first, tell me about Earth. Tell me about humanity's children and what they have become." Jake looked at his team, seeing the same wonder and confusion in their eyes that he felt. They had come looking for ancient alien technology, but instead they had found something far more incredible. They had found their own forgotten past. "We have much to discuss," Jake said to the ancient intelligence. "And I think we're going to need to sit down for this conversation." Ambassador Marcus Davis stood before the Great Hall of the Galactic Council, his hands shaking slightly as he held the data pad containing humanity's most important discovery. The massive chamber was filled with representatives from dozens of alien species, all of them looking down at him from their elevated seats. The council chamber was designed to intimidate. The ceiling stretched high above, covered in stars that showed the territories of each member species. At the center of it all sat High Counselor Zexter, a tall being with silver skin and 4 arms. His species, the Vorthans, had been the dominant power in the galaxy for over 10,000 years. "Ambassador Davis," Zexter's voice boomed through the hall, "you have requested this emergency session to present what you claim is evidence of ancient human civilization. The Council will hear your words, but we warn you that false claims are taken very seriously here." Marcus took a deep breath and activated his holographic display. The image of the Sovereign appeared above him, slowly rotating to show its massive size and advanced design. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the assembled aliens. Honored Council members, Marcus began. 3 weeks ago, human explorers discovered this vessel drifting in the outer rim. Our initial analysis shows it to be approximately 50,000 years old and of human construction. The murmurs turned to laughter. Counselor Rayana of the Selenoid Federation, a being that looked like a cross between a plant and an insect, clicked her mandibles in amusement. Humans in space 50,000 years ago. Ambassador, your species barely managed to reach their own moon 300 years ago. The evidence is overwhelming, Marcus continued, trying to keep his voice steady. The ship's computer core has been partially activated, and it contains historical records of a human civilization that spanned thousands of star systems. High Counselor Zexther leaned forward in his seat. Show us this evidence. Marcus activated another hologram, this one showing the ancient star charts that Phoenix had revealed. The map displayed a vast network of human colonies, trade routes, and military installations. It was a civilization that dwarfed anything currently in the galaxy. These are obvious fabrications, declared Counselor Veximer of the Klaxon Empire. Humans are known for their creative stories. This is simply another example of their overactive imaginations. We have physical evidence, Marcus said, his voice growing stronger. The ship itself, the technology, the computer records. All of. It points to an advanced human civilization that existed long before any of the current galactic powers. The laughter grew louder. Counselor Rayana stood up, her multiple arms waving in the air. Even if such a ship exists, which we doubt, it could not possibly be human. Perhaps your people found some ancient Vorthan vessel and decided to claim it as their own. That is exactly what happened, Zexther said, his voice filled with certainty. The Vorthan Empire has been building advanced starships for over 20,000 years. This vessel is clearly one of our lost explorer ships, stolen by human scavengers. Marcus felt his heart sinking. The ship's computer speaks English. It identifies itself as human. The crew records are all human names and faces, easily fabricated, Veximer said dismissively. Humans are clever with their computers. They could have programmed any story they wanted into that machine. The mockery continued for another hour. Each piece of evidence Marcus presented was dismissed or explained away. The council members joked about human desperation, their need to feel important among the great civilizations of the galaxy. Perhaps, Counselor Rayana suggested with malicious humor, humans are so ashamed of their primitive origins that they must invent glorious ancestors to feel better about themselves. The hall erupted in laughter. Marcus stood there, his face burning with embarrassment, as the most powerful beings in the galaxy treated humanity's greatest discovery like a joke. High Counselor Zexther raised one of his 4 hands for silence. Ambassador Davis, the Galactic Council has heard your claims and finds them to be without merit. Not only do we reject your evidence, but we are disturbed by humanity's attempt to deceive this council with fabricated historical records. It's not fabricated, Marcus said desperately. If you would just send a team to examine the ship. The council will send no teams to validate obvious lies, Zexther said sharply. However, we will take action to prevent further deception. Effective immediately, all human colonies will face increased trade restrictions until your government admits to this fraud and apologizes to the species you have tried to deceive. The pronouncement hit Marcus like a physical blow. Trade restrictions would hurt human colonies across the galaxy. Families would suffer because the council refused to believe the truth. Furthermore, Zexther continued, this session will be broadcast across the galactic network, so all civilizations can see how humans attempt to steal the glory of their betters. The broadcast began immediately. Marcus watched in horror as cameras focused on him standing alone in the great hall, surrounded by laughing alien representatives. The humiliation was complete and public. Let this be a lesson, Counselor Veximer announced to the cameras, to any species that thinks they can deceive the Galactic Council. Humans are primitive newcomers to space, barely able to travel between their own star systems. The idea that they once ruled a galactic empire is laughable. The broadcast continued for another 20 minutes, with different council members taking turns to mock human pretensions. They showed comparison images of current human technology next to advanced alien ships, emphasizing how far behind humanity was in the galactic community. Back on the Sovereign, Captain Jake Morrison and his team watched the broadcast in stunned silence. The humiliation was complete. Not only had the Council rejected their evidence, but they were turning humanity into a laughingstock across the galaxy. "This is bad," Rick Adams said, shaking his head. "My family lives on the Kepler colony. Those trade restrictions are going to hurt a lot of people." Amy Walsh looked up from her communications console. "Captain, I'm receiving reports from human colonies all across the galaxy. Alien traders are already canceling contracts. Some are even refusing to sell basic supplies to human settlements." Dr. Lisa Carter was still working at the computer core, trying to extract more information from Phoenix. "Jake, you need to see this. Phoenix has been monitoring the galactic communication networks. It knows what just happened at the Council." Jake approached the glowing sphere. "Phoenix, what can you tell us about this situation?" The ancient AI's words appeared in the air above them. "Captain Morrison, I have observed the Council's response to your discovery. Their reaction is not surprising. The current galactic powers built their authority on the belief that they are the natural rulers of space. Evidence of ancient human dominance threatens their entire worldview." "But why won't they even look at the evidence?" Jake asked. "Because they are afraid," Phoenix replied. "The Vorthan Empire, the Selenoid Federation, all of them claim to be ancient civilizations, but their oldest records only go back 20,000 years. They know that something came before them, something that built the ruins they found on 100 worlds. They have always feared that those ancient builders might return." Rick was studying his instruments again. "Captain, I'm detecting multiple ship signatures approaching human space. It looks like a large fleet." Amy's communication board lit up with incoming signals. "Captain, Admiral Carl Johnson is requesting immediate communication. He says it's urgent." Jake activated the communication link. Admiral Johnson's weathered face appeared on the screen, his expression grim. "Jake, we've got a problem. A Galactic Council enforcement fleet is heading for your position. 200 ships led by the Vorthan Dreadnought Dominion. What do they want?" Jake asked, though he already suspected the answer. "They claim they're coming to inspect your alleged ancient ship," Johnson said. "But my sources in the Council say they're really coming to seize it and destroy any evidence of human history. They can't let word of this discovery spread." Jake felt a cold knot forming in his stomach. "How long do we have?" 6 hours, maybe less." "Jake, my fleet is already on its way, but we only have 12 ships. Against 200 Council vessels, we don't stand a chance." The communication ended, leaving Jake and his team to contemplate their situation. They had discovered proof of humanity's ancient greatness, only to have it dismissed and mocked. Now a massive alien fleet was coming to take it away from them. "Phoenix," Jake said quietly, "what would the ancient humans have done in this situation?" The AI's response appeared slowly, as if it was considering its words carefully. "The humans who built this ship were warriors, Captain Morrison. They would have fought to protect what was theirs. But they were also wise enough to know that some battles cannot be won through force alone." "Are you saying we should surrender?" Lisa asked. "I am saying that you have choices to make," Phoenix replied. "The Sovereign is not merely a historical artifact. It is a weapon of incredible power, built by humans who understood that sometimes strength is the only language that bullies understand. Jake stared at the ancient computer core, understanding dawning in his mind. Phoenix, are you saying this ship could fight off a council fleet? Captain Morrison, this ship could fight off a dozen council fleets. But using its POW. The holographic display filled the chamber with images that took Jake's breath away. Star systems by the thousands, each one marked with human settlements. Trade routes that spanned the galaxy. Military installations that dwarfed anything this current council possessed. Phoenix was showing them the true scope of ancient human civilization. Your ancestors ruled over half the known galaxy, Phoenix explained, its words floating in the air above the display. 3,000 star systems, 15 billion humans, and the most advanced technology ever created. We were the guardians of galactic peace for over 10,000 years. Dr. Lisa Carter moved closer to the display, her eyes wide with wonder. What happened to them? Why did they disappear? The images changed, showing scenes of massive battles. Fleets of ships engaged in combat across space, weapons that could destroy entire planets, and the horror of a galaxy torn apart by war. Darkness wars, Phoenix said simply. An enemy from outside our galaxy invaded, bringing with them a hunger that could not be satisfied. They consumed entire star systems, turning them into empty void. Rick Adams was studying the technical specifications that appeared alongside the historical images. Captain, these weapon systems are incredible. This ship alone has more firepower than our entire fleet. The war lasted for centuries, Phoenix continued. Your ancestors fought bravely, but the cost was terrible. Billions died. Entire civilizations were wiped out. In the end, humans made a choice that showed their true character. The display showed a final desperate battle. A massive human fleet, led by ships like the Sovereign, making a last stand against an overwhelming enemy. But instead of fighting to the death, the human ships suddenly changed course, retreating toward a small blue planet on the edge of the galaxy. They chose survival over glory, Phoenix said. Rather than rule over the ashes of a dead galaxy, they decided to start fresh. The surviving humans took their most advanced technology and hid it away, then used primitive ships to travel to Earth. They destroyed all records of their former empire and began again as simple farmers and builders. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. They chose to forget their own history. They chose to give their children a chance for a better future, Phoenix corrected. The technology that created this ship, the weapons that could destroy worlds, the knowledge that could reshape the galaxy. They locked it all away, hoping that someday their descendants would be wise enough to use it properly. Amy Walsh looked up from her communications console. Captain, I'm monitoring galactic broadcasts. The mockery of humanity is spreading. Other species are joining in, making jokes about human delusions of grandeur. Lisa was still studying the historical data. Phoenix, if ancient humans were so advanced, why don't we find traces of their civilization? Why are there no ruins, no artifacts? Because they were thorough, Phoenix replied. When they decided to start over, they dismantled their cities, recycled their technology, and even altered planetary surfaces to hide their presence. Only a few ships like the Sovereign were kept in hidden locations, waiting for the day when humanity might need them again. The display changed again, showing current galactic politics. The council races, their territories, their military strengths and weaknesses. Phoenix had been watching and learning for 50,000 years, gathering intelligence on every species that had risen to power after humanity's withdrawal. The Vorthans consider themselves the galaxy's natural rulers, Phoenix said, but their empire is only 20,000 years old. They built their power on the ruins of human outposts, reverse engineering technology they found, but never understanding how it really worked. Rick was examining the ship's technical specifications more closely. "Captain, this vessel has something called a void lance. According to these readings, it can disable entire fleets without destroying them. The void lance creates controlled gravity wells around enemy ships," Phoenix explained. "It renders their engines and weapons useless while leaving their life support systems intact. Your ancestors believed in defeating enemies, not destroying them." Jake was beginning to understand the true scope of what they had discovered. "Phoenix, could this ship defend itself against the Council fleet that's coming?" "Captain Morrison, this ship could defeat the Council fleet without taking a single casualty. But doing so would announce to the galaxy that humanity has remembered its heritage. There would be no going back to being a minor civilization." The communications console chimed with an incoming message. Admiral Johnson's face appeared on the screen, his expression more worried than before. "Jake, we've got new intelligence on the Council fleet. High Counselor Zexter himself is aboard the Dominion. He's not just coming to inspect your ship. He's planning to make an example of humanity." "What kind of example?" Jake asked. "My sources say he intends to destroy your ship and declare human colonies to be under direct Council supervision. He wants to make sure no other species gets ideas about challenging Council authority." The transmission ended, leaving Jake and his team to face the reality of their situation. In a few hours, the most powerful fleet in the galaxy would arrive, with the intention of destroying everything they had discovered. "Phoenix," Jake said quietly, "what would you do if you were in command?" The AI was silent for a long moment before responding. "I would remember that I am human, Captain Morrison. Your ancestors did not build this ship to hide from bullies. They built it to protect what matters most, the freedom to choose your own path among the stars." Lisa looked up from her research. "Jake, I've been analyzing the historical records. The ancient humans didn't just rule through force. They were peacekeepers, mediators, protectors of smaller civilizations. They used their power to create order, not to dominate. But they were also willing to fight when fighting was necessary," Phoenix added. "The Darkness Wars proved that some enemies cannot be reasoned with. Sometimes the only way to protect peace is to be stronger than those who would destroy it." Rick had been working on the ship's systems while they talked. "Captain, I think I can bring more of the ship online. Phoenix has been guiding me through the activation sequences. We could have full power in about an hour." Jake walked over to the main display, staring at the approaching Council fleet markers. 200 ships, all of them coming to humiliate humanity and steal their heritage. The decision he made in the next few minutes would determine not just the fate of his crew, but the future of his entire species. "Phoenix, if we activate this ship's full capabilities, what happens next?" "That depends on you, Captain," the AI replied. "Your ancestors chose to withdraw from galactic politics because they believed power corrupts. But they also knew that sometimes good people must accept power to protect others from those who would abuse it." Amy looked up from her console. "Captain, I'm receiving a transmission from the Council fleet. They're demanding we surrender the ship and prepare to be boarded." Jake made his decision. "Phoenix, begin full activation of the Sovereign. All systems, all weapons, everything. Are you certain, Captain Morrison? Once this ship reveals its true capabilities, there will be no hiding what humanity once was." "Then it's time the galaxy remembered," Jake said firmly. "Our ancestors may have chosen to forget, but we don't have that luxury. The Council wants to treat us like children who don't deserve respect. Maybe it's time to show them what happens when you corner a sleeping giant." The chamber around them began to change. Lights that had been dark for 50,000 years came online. The air itself seemed to hum with power as massive systems throughout the ship awakened. The symbols on the walls glowed brighter and new. DISPLAY, as appeared showing the ship's true capabilities. Full activation will take approximately 1 hour, Phoenix announced. During that time, the ship will be vulnerable. A council fleet will arrive before we are ready. Then we'll have to buy some time, Jake said. Amy, open a channel to Admiral Johnson. Tell him to position his fleet between us and the council ships. We need them to delay the enemy as long as possible. Captain, Lisa said, studying the new displays. These power readings are incredible. When this ship is fully active, it will be like nothing the galaxy has ever seen. Jake nodded grimly. That's exactly what we're counting on. Phoenix, I want you to prepare a full historical broadcast. When we face the Council fleet, I want every species in the galaxy to know the truth about humanity's past. The truth will change everything, Phoenix warned. The galaxy will never see humans the same way again. Good, Jake said. We've been underestimated for too long. It's time to remind the galaxy that humans don't just survive, we thrive. And we protect those who can't protect themselves. As the Sovereign continued its awakening, Jake felt the weight of 50,000 years of history settling on his shoulders. His ancestors had chosen to hide their power, hoping their descendants would find a better way. Now it was up to him to prove that humanity had learned from the past and could be trusted with the future. The Council fleet was coming with overwhelming force, expecting to face a primitive human vessel. Instead, they would meet the awakened power of humanity's greatest creation. The galaxy was about to learn that some sleeping giants should never be disturbed. The Council fleet dropped out of hyperspace like a swarm of angry insects. 200 ships of various sizes and designs, all bearing the symbols of the galaxy's most powerful civilizations. At their head was the Dominion, a massive Vorthan dreadnought that was 3 times the size of the largest human vessel. Admiral Carl Johnson's small fleet of 12 ships looked pathetic in comparison. They had positioned themselves between the Sovereign and the approaching Council forces, but everyone knew they were hopelessly outmatched. On the bridge of the Dominion, High Counselor Zexter stood before the main viewing screen, his 4 arms crossed in satisfaction. Behind him, Admiral Kethver studied the tactical displays with professional interest. The humans brought their entire fleet to protect 1 ship, Kethvar observed. 12 vessels against our 200. They must be desperate. They are about to learn the cost of lying to the Galactic Council, Zexter replied. Open communications. I want to speak to whoever is in command of that pathetic human force. The communication channel crackled to life, and Admiral Johnson's face appeared on the screen. His expression was grim but determined. This is Admiral Carl Johnson of the Human Defense Force. You are in violation of human territorial space. Zexter's laughter filled the bridge. Admiral Johnson, you speak of territorial violations while harboring stolen property. The ancient vessel behind your fleet belongs to the Vorthan Empire. Return it immediately, and we may show mercy to your colonies. That ship is human property, Johnson replied firmly. We have proof of its origins, and we will not surrender it to anyone. Proof? Zexter's voice dripped with contempt. You mean the fabricated stories and false historical records? The Council has already rejected your lies. Now you will face the consequences. On the Sovereign, Jake Morrison watched the confrontation unfold while Phoenix continued the ship's activation sequence. The ancient AI had been working for the past hour, bringing system after system online, but the process was taking longer than expected. How much more time do we need? Jake asked. Approximately 20 minutes, Phoenix replied. But Captain, the Council fleet is already powering their weapons. They do not intend to wait for negotiations. Rick Adams was monitoring the ship's systems as they came online. Captain, I'm reading massive energy buildups throughout the ship. When this thing is fully activated, it's going to be like nothing the galaxy has ever seen. Dr. Lisa Carter was still working with the historical databases, preparing the broadcast that would reveal the truth about humanity's past. Jake, the evidence is overwhelming. When the galaxy sees these records, they'll know the Council has been lying about human history. Amy Walsh looked up from her communications console. Captain, Admiral Johnson is requesting orders. The Council fleet is moving into attack formation. Jake opened a channel to Johnson's flagship. Admiral, I need you to buy us 20 more minutes. Can you do that? Johnson's weathered face showed no fear, only determination. We'll do our best, Jake, but against 200 ships, we can't promise much. Just hold them off as long as you can, Jake replied. What we're about to show the galaxy will change everything. The communication ended, and Jake watched as the small human fleet moved to intercept the Council forces. It was a brave gesture, but everyone knew it was hopeless. On the Dominion, Zexter was growing impatient. Admiral Kethvar, how long will it take to sweep aside these human vessels? Perhaps 10 minutes, Kethvar replied. Their ships are outdated and outnumbered. But, Counselor, they are taking a defensive formation around the ancient vessel. They appear willing to die to protect it. Then they will get their wish, Zexter said coldly. Begin the attack. I want that ancient ship captured intact, but I care nothing for the human vessels. Destroy them all. The Council fleet opened fire, and space lit up with energy beams and missile trails. The human ships fought back bravely, but their weapons barely scratched the advanced Council vessels. One by one, human ships began to fall. Jake watched in horror as the Endeavor, one of Admiral Johnson's destroyers, exploded in a ball of fire. Good people were dying to buy him time, and he felt the weight of their sacrifice. Phoenix, we have to do something, Jake said desperately. Those are my people out there. The activation sequence cannot be rushed, Phoenix replied. But Captain, there is something I can do. I can extend the ship's shields to protect the human fleet. Do it, Jake ordered without hesitation. The Sovereign's shields expanded outward, creating a protective barrier around the human ships. The Council weapons struck the shields and were absorbed harmlessly, much to the amazement of both fleets. On the Dominion, Admiral Kethvar stared at his instruments in disbelief. Counselor, that ancient ship just projected shields around the entire human fleet. I've never seen technology like this. Zexter's expression changed from confidence to concern. How is that possible? The ship appeared to be derelict. It appears to be activating, sir. Energy readings are off the charts. Zexter studied the tactical display, his forearms twitching with agitation. That changes nothing. Concentrate all fire on the ancient vessel. If we can't destroy the human fleet, we'll destroy their prize. The entire Council fleet turned their weapons on the Sovereign. Hundreds of energy beams and missiles struck the ship's shields, creating a light show that could be seen across the star system. But the shields held firm, absorbing the massive barrage without even flickering. Impossible, Kethvar whispered. Our combined firepower should be able to destroy a planet, but we're not even scratching their shields. Jake felt the ship shudder under the assault, but knew they were safe. Phoenix was drawing power from systems that had been dormant for 50,000 years, and the Sovereign's shields were designed to withstand weapons far more powerful than anything the Council possessed. Phoenix, are we ready yet? Jake asked. 5 more minutes, Captain. But I should warn you, when the activation is complete, this ship will be fully visible to every sensor in the galaxy. There will be no hiding what we are. Then it's time for the galaxy to meet its makers, Jake said grimly. Amy, prepare the historical broadcast. I want every species in the galaxy to know the truth. The communication went out on all galactic frequencies, reaching every inhabited world, every space station, and every ship in the galaxy. The broadcast began with simple text. The truth about humanity's past. Then the images began. Star charts showing the vast human empire. Records of peaceful first contact with dozens of alien species. Documentation of human peacekeeping efforts across the galaxy. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable, but it was the final image that shocked the galaxy most. A picture of the Sovereign in its prime, leading a fleet of similar vessels. The ship was beautiful and terrible, clearly designed by a civilization that possessed technology beyond anything currently known. On the Dominion, Zexter watched the broadcast with growing horror. This cannot be real. Humans are primitives. They barely qualify as a spacefaring species. Counselor, Cuthver said quietly, our own historical records show evidence of an advanced civilization that existed before the Vorthan Empire. We always assumed it was myth, but these images match descriptions from our oldest archives. Across the galaxy, billions of beings watched the broadcast in stunned silence. The Selenoid Federation's archives contained references to the old builders who had left behind mysterious ruins on dozens of worlds. The Klaxon Empire had built their capital city on top of structures that predated their civilization by tens of thousands of years. Everything suddenly made sense. The ruins that couldn't be explained, the advanced technology found buried on primitive worlds, the strange energy signatures detected in the deepest parts of space. It had all been human. On the Sovereign, Phoenix announced that the activation sequence was complete. Captain Morrison, all systems are now online. The ship is ready for whatever you decide to do. Jake took a deep breath and opened communications to the Council fleet. High Counselor Zexter, this is Captain Jake Morrison of the human starship Sovereign. I believe we need to have a conversation. Zexter's face appeared on the screen, his silver features twisted with confusion and anger. Captain Morrison, these broadcasts prove nothing. Anyone can fabricate historical records. Then let me show you something that can't be fabricated. Jake replied, Phoenix, begin transformation sequence. The Sovereign began to change. What had appeared to be an ancient, damaged hulk suddenly came alive. Hull plates shifted and realigned, revealing the ship's true form. Weapon ports that had been hidden for millennia opened along the vessel's sides. Energy collectors unfolded. Like wings, gathering power from the nearby star, the transformation was magnificent and terrifying. The ship grew larger as hidden sections extended, revealing its true size. When the process was complete, the Sovereign was easily the largest vessel anyone in the galaxy had ever seen, dwarfing even the massive Dominion. By the void, Admiral Cuthver whispered, It's beautiful. Zexter was less impressed. Impressive. Illusions, Captain Morrison, but the Council is not easily fooled. You will surrender that vessel immediately, or we will take it by force. Jake looked around at his crew, seeing the same determination in their eyes that he felt in his heart. Phoenix, show them what the Void Lance can do. Target the Dominion, Boo. The hour passed slowly. On the Sovereign, Jake Morrison and his crew waited while the Galactic Council debated their response. Throughout the galaxy, billions of beings watched the standoff, knowing that history was being written in the void. Between the two fleets, Phoenix had been monitoring galactic communications during the wait. Captain, the reaction across the galaxy has been extraordinary. Species that have been Council members for thousands of years are questioning their loyalty. Several minor civilizations have already declared their support for humanity. Dr. Lisa. Carter looked up from her console. Jake, I'm receiving diplomatic messages from over 40 species. They're all requesting formal relations with humanity. Some are even offering trade agreements and mutual defense pacts. A galaxy is realigning itself around the new reality, Rick Adams observed. Everyone wants to be friends with the species that has the biggest ship. Jake shook his head. It's not about having the biggest ship, Rick. It's about earning respect through strength and wisdom. Our ancestors understood that. Amy Walsh's communication board chimed with an incoming signal. Captain, High Counselor Zexter is requesting to speak with you. Put him through, Jake said. Zexter's image appeared on the screen, but he looked different now. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something that might have been respect. Behind him, Admiral Kethfer stood quietly, no longer radiating the confident superiority that had marked their earlier encounter. Captain Morrison, Zexter began, the Council has reached a decision. We accept your terms, with one addition. The Council formally requests that humanity resume its place as a member of the galactic community, not as a minor civilization, but as a founding member with full rights and privileges. Jake was surprised by the offer. It was more than he had asked for, more than he had expected. What changed your mind, High Counselor? Reality, Zexter replied simply. Our historians have been examining the evidence you provided. It matches records we thought were myths. The ruins on Vorthan Prime, the ancient technology we built our empire upon, the energy signatures we've detected in deep space. It was all human. Admiral Kethfer stepped forward. Captain, with your permission, I would like to request something personal. Could we tour your vessel? As a military officer, I have studied warfare for my entire career, but I have never seen technology like yours. Jake looked at his crew, seeing their encouragement. Phoenix, what do you think? I believe it would be beneficial, the ancient AI replied. Understanding leads to respect, and respect leads to peace. Your ancestors would have approved. Very well, Jake said. You may send a small diplomatic party aboard. But High Counselor, I want your word that this visit is peaceful. You have it, Zexter said solemnly. An hour later, Jake found himself giving a tour of the Sovereign to the galaxy's most powerful leaders. High Counselor Zexter moved through the ship's corridors. With obvious awe, his four arms reaching out to touch the smooth walls with their glowing symbols. These corridors are larger than anything on our ships, Admiral Kethfer observed. The space alone represents incredible engineering. Ancient humans built for permanence, Phoenix explained through the ship's communication system. This vessel was designed to operate for thousands of years without major maintenance. Every system has backup systems, and those have backups as well. They entered the main computer core, where Phoenix's sphere hung suspended in the center of the chamber. The council representatives stared up at the ancient AI with expressions of wonder and fear. Phoenix, Zexter said carefully, you have been conscious for 50,000 years? I have been aware, Phoenix corrected. Consciousness is perhaps too strong a word. I have been waiting, watching, learning, preparing for the day when humanity would return to claim its heritage. What was it like? Kethfer asked. Watching civilizations rise and fall while you waited? Educational, Phoenix replied. I have observed the patterns of galactic politics, the rise and fall of empires, the mistakes that species make when they gain power too quickly. It has given me perspective on what makes a civilization truly great. They moved to the weapons control center, where displays showed the devastating power of the ship's armaments. Zexter studied the readouts with professional interest. The Void Lance is remarkable, he said. A weapon that defeats without destroying. It shows incredible restraint. Ancient humans understood that dead enemies cannot become allies, Phoenix explained. They built weapons to end conflicts, not to commit genocide. Dr. Carter was showing them the historical databases when Kethfer asked the question everyone was thinking. Captain Morrison, what happens now? You have power that dwarfs anything in the galaxy. What will humanity do with it? Jake had been thinking about that question for hours. The same thing our ancestors did. We'll use it to protect peace, to defend those who cannot defend themselves, and to ensure that no single power dominates the galaxy. Even if that power is human? Zexter asked pointedly. Especially if that power is human, Jake replied. Our ancestors chose exile rather than become tyrants. They understood that power corrupts unless it's held in check by wisdom and restraint. The tour continued for several more hours. The council representatives saw the ship's manufacturing facilities, which could build anything from medicine to starships. They examined the terraforming equipment that could transform dead worlds into gardens. They studied the defensive systems that could protect entire star systems from attack. But it was the ship's library that impressed them most. Phoenix had preserved 50,000 years of human knowledge, art, music, and philosophy. It was a treasure trove of wisdom that represented the highest achievements of galactic civilization. This knowledge should be shared, Sexter said as he examined displays showing advanced medical techniques. The galaxy has suffered without this wisdom. It will be, Jake promised, but gradually, carefully. Our ancestors learned that too much technology given too quickly can be dangerous. We'll share what we know, but we'll do it responsibly. As the tour concluded, Admiral Kethfor approached Jake with obvious respect. Captain, I owe you an apology. When we arrived here, I believed we were facing primitive humans who had found some ancient artifact. Instead, I find myself in the presence of the galaxy's rightful guardians. We're not guardians, Jake corrected. We're participants. The galaxy belongs to all of us, not just humans. Our job is to make sure it stays that way. The council representatives returned to their ships with new understanding. Within hours, the formal agreements were signed. Humanity was welcomed back into galactic civilization, not as supplicants, but as equals. Trade restrictions were lifted. Formal apologies were issued, and new diplomatic relationships were established. But perhaps more importantly, the galaxy had rediscovered the principles that had guided ancient human civilization. Strength tempered by wisdom, power balanced by restraint, and the understanding that true greatness comes from lifting others up rather than keeping them. Down. Jake stood on the bridge of the Sovereign as the council fleet prepared to depart. The Dominion systems had been restored, and Admiral Kethvar had requested permission to escort the human vessel to the galactic core as an honor guard. Phoenix, Jake said, what do you think our ancestors would say about today? I think they would be proud, the ancient AI replied. You faced overwhelming force with courage. You used power responsibly, and you chose cooperation over domination. You have proven worthy of their legacy. Rick Adams was studying the ship's sensor readings. Captain, we're receiving communication requests from all over the galaxy. It seems everyone wants to talk to us now. The galaxy is eager to learn from its rediscovered children, Phoenix observed. There will be challenges ahead, but also opportunities. Humanity has a chance to help shape a better future for all civilizations. Dr. Carter was already planning research expeditions to investigate other ancient human sites. Jake, Phoenix says there are at least 6 other ships, like the Sovereign, hidden throughout the galaxy. If we could find them and reactivate them ... One step at a time, Jake said with a smile. We've given the galaxy enough surprises for one day. As the great fleets moved toward the galactic core, news of humanity's return spread across space. On 1,000 worlds, beings looked up at the stars with new understanding. The mysterious builders of the ancient ruins had names and faces. The advanced technology that no one could fully comprehend had makers who were willing to share their knowledge. But perhaps most importantly, the galaxy had remembered what it meant to have true leaders, beings who possessed great power, but used it to serve rather than to rule, who chose wisdom over force and cooperation over domination. Humanity had returned to the stars not as conquerors, but as teachers, and the galaxy was ready to learn. The sovereign sailed on through the void, carrying with it the hopes and dreams of a civilization that had chosen to start over 50,000 years ago. Their descendants had proven worthy of that sacrifice, showing that the best of human nature could survive any trial and emerge stronger than before. Behind them, the stars themselves seemed to shine brighter, as if the galaxy itself was celebrating the return of its lost children. The Age of Ancient. Power had begun again, but this time it would be guided by ancient wisdom God, and in the department.